Well, good evening. Good evening. It's great to be with all of you here this evening. Tanny, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Thanks to you and Michael and Tamika for sharing your stories. You are truly a tough act to follow. As I get started with my formal remarks, I want to first thank the team at Year Up for the opportunity to speak at this truly inspiring celebration this evening. And especially to Gerald Chertavian, who left a very successful career in business to create this organization 17 years ago. Gerald, you are indeed an inspiration to all of us in the private sector who are driven to pay it forward and make our community a much better place. And my most enthusiastic congratulations to all of you graduates. Many of you have been to hell and back, and some of you more than once. And while you wouldn't wish that on anyone, it has nonetheless made you stronger, made you better. I don't speak from experience here. I have not faced and overcome the challenge that you have, but I have hired many people and interviewed many more. And I can tell you that your life experiences are more valuable than any college degree will ever be. Because when I hear your stories, as an employer, I see problem-solving skills and the strength to persevere through difficult times. I see leadership and maturity. I see resilience in the face of adversity and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Stories about chaotic home lives ravaged by alcohol, drugs, or just general instability, and sometimes violence. Lives in which the child is the parent, forced to take on responsibilities and pressures well before the age when most kids are faced with them, if they're ever faced with them at all. Lives made more challenging by coming to a new country where you are relied upon to take the lead in mastering a new language and understanding a new culture. Lives in which financial resources were scarce and sometimes non-existent. And despite all of this, you have not only survived, you have thrived. So here you are now, successfully completing this latest chapter of your life. Yes, you made it. You climbed this pinnacle, and you are on your way. But you have so much more ahead of you, great things that you possibly could not imagine today. And of this, I do speak from experience. 35 years ago, I began my career as a banker purely out of economic necessity. I was extremely fortunate to grow up in a wonderful home with a loving and supportive family with both parents and two younger siblings. I had everything a kid would want, but we did not have the money to afford college. So I worked. From my very earliest days, delivering newspapers to a variety of jobs through elementary school, junior high, and high school, becoming a bank teller in my senior year and cleaning bank branches at night so I could pay for the college I attended during the day. While I was in college, a professor there asked us to write a business plan for our life after graduation, outlining an ultimate goal and the steps necessary to achieve it. Furthermore, in establishing this goal, he told us to aim high for something seemingly unreachable, with the idea that if we reached way up here and aimed way up here and fell short, we'd be so much further ahead than if we had set a more reasonable target. I'll tell you, this was a daunting task. Most of us were focused on getting a job within the next few months and hadn't even begun to consider our career over the next few years, let alone the next few decades. After a few days of thinking about this challenge, I decided to write down, become the president of the largest bank headquartered in Boston by age 40. I was just 21 years old. and had no reason to think this was possible. I was a good student, but otherwise a pretty ordinary guy in school. I was only able to attend college by the grace of a scholarship which allowed me to earn just enough to pay the difference by working. No one in my family had ever been in the banking business and had no connections to anyone in the industry. In fact, I had just been rejected by a bank training program I really wanted to get into. However, by virtue of being a teller and a bank janitor at night, I was already in banking. And I liked it. And the professor told me to aim high, so why not? Although shortly thereafter I got a great job at another bank, I didn't think about that assignment or that crazy goal for a long time. However, as my career progressed, I started to think more seriously about that business plan goal I had set so many years before. Now, since I was living then in Pennsylvania, I didn't think becoming a bank president in Boston was all that likely. But I began to think I could reach my goal in some other comparable way. About that time, I got an opportunity to follow a buddy of mine to Omaha, Nebraska, to help him lead a bank that was headquartered there. And I'll tell you, my parents were devastated. After years of hoping my prior company would acquire something in New England that would bring me back home after 20 years, I was now moving their grandchildren another 1,100 miles away. So, in an act of desperation to assuage their unhappiness, I told them, and I actually just made this up, but don't ask me how, but the road to Omaha leads back to Boston. And you know what? Less than a year later, it did. 90 days after I arrived at that bank, it was sold. And while I was waiting for the deal to be completed, I received a call from a recruiter asking me if I had ever heard of Eastern Bank. So on January 1st in 2007, at age 42, I became the president of Eastern Bank, which is in fact the largest bank headquartered in Boston. So in more ways than I had ever dreamed, I had achieved that outlandish goal that I had written down over 20 years before. The point of this story is this: don't settle. While you have already accomplished things that maybe you didn't think were possible before you came to Year Up, don't stop there. Go further. Aim high. Set a new goal, one that you don't think is possible or even reasonable. As Michael said earlier, keep pursuing greatness. And when you reach that height, set another goal. I have. Because while being the CEO of a large company is pretty cool, the journey to it has only opened my eyes that I can do even more. So maybe 10 or 20 years from now, you'll look back and say, I knew that guy when. And I'm certain that I will say the same about you. If you commit yourself to continuous learning and improvement as a professional, and most importantly, as a person, like Gerald and so many other graduates before you. So once again, my deepest and most sincere, admiring congratulations on all that you've accomplished, and best wishes for the good work that you still have yet to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.